maybe you can share a story, each one of you, with the audience, in terms of how important communication was, just like an example, if you can think of one, whether it was a good or a bad result. So I'm not sure who of you can think of one first, and the one that's first, you can start sharing it.
I have a couple that come to mind. I'd say our team, we have a small team, so we're still pretty good at communicating internally. Where we start to run into issues is with the customer expectations. So a lot of the times when we have custom projects, and now we have an official project manager working with us, so that's made things way smoother. But when we're first starting out in the custom work, this is, you kind of have to understand exactly what the customer wants to get out of the product and what's feasible from your engineering team. And I used to be kind of the interface between the customer and our internal team and going back and forth. So we learned the hard way that if there's not a written document, a statement of work at the beginning of the project, then the scope just continues to increase and increase and increase. And it just starts pulling resources from teams. And really the biggest impact is the morale on both, right? The customer starts to get disappointed because their expectation wasn't met. And then our team just continues to get disappointed. They're drained continuing to work on the same project. We don't feel like we're getting things accomplished and done, which is very important, that closure feeling, like, the accomplishment of finishing a project. So we've had a couple of issues like that in the past. We've shipped machines that for our standards were done and completed, and then the customer was not exactly what they were looking for. So then repairing or, improving upon those things once the machine's in the field makes it 1,000 times more expensive, harder. There's travel back and forth. There's like remote connections. So it's just a situation where we've learned a lot. And, so we've from that, it goes back to like working with the team, right? Like, okay, this clearly didn't go well. What worked well in this project? And then learning about, okay, what should we try next time so that these parts that we had issues with don't happen again. And that's what we continue to do with all of our processes. But I agree with you, like documentation is huge, like communication is huge. I always recommend to anyone in general, but especially anyone on my team, if there's a verbal conversation happening, make sure there is a follow-up email outlining exactly what was described, right? Like who's responsible for what part, what were the dates discussed, and what were the actual items that were covered in that conversation. So our team's gotten really good at creating accompanying documentation to any project, and that's been because we've been burned before. And absolutely, like the issue was communication and just mismatched expectations.
Yeah, paper trail, very important. Awesome, thank you, Mariem. Sophia, can you add to this?
Yeah, so I can talk more about internal communication. I don't work as much with the customers, but internally I've learned a lot of things, especially dealing with either issues that arise or major projects or testing or things like that, where communication is very important. I know everyone always says you can never over communicate. So because there can be things that are happening and it gets around and people think that they know what's going on, but they heard, something from someone and it's twisted a different way, and then everyone's confused. So definitely one of the big things in terms of communication, we're in person, so I really like face-to-face interactions, because I think that's, for me, the best way you can talk to the person or talk to people and get that feedback. I do agree with Mariem, after that, putting it in writing is a good way to track it, so you can, make sure that, it was discussed and that it's recorded and documented what was decided upon. But definitely having meetings and inviting, you got to think about, not only one or a few certain people that it would affect. You got to think, big picture, who needs to know what and how it affects everyone else. So, communicating to everyone that needs to know, so that everyone's on the same page, is very, very important. whether it's a test result or something that you found out that was wrong and what you're doing to fix it. So, having an agenda and a plan, and then communicating that to the people that need to know.